We just watched the PlayStation State of Play, and we have some thoughts.
Yeah, as we do, we're wondering, okay, here's what Sony announced. What does this mean for Nintendo?
Right.
So we're going to talk about that. But first, just to run through some of the big stuff in here. You know, I was not very excited for this. My expectations were very low.
Muted.
Sony had already said, hey, for this year, none of our big major IP are going to be there. Okay. This almost felt like it was the obligatory.
We have to do this.
We got to do it at this time of year. We got to support our third parties who probably have more games than we do.
Right.
So I wasn't really expecting much of anything.
Yeah.
Started it off with like 10 minutes of this live service game, Concord, which looked very much like Overwatch. That's going to have a beta in July. It's going to be out in August.
Yeah.
That's a game that PlayStation fans can look forward to, at least.
At least they have
something.
Something this summer.
Right.
After having not very much going on.
Exactly. You just, they're having literally anything as a PlayStation owner is something to look forward to. Other stuff like Marvel Rivals, beta in July, that's fine, that's good. Silent Hill 2 had a date in October.
Right.
That's a big, PlayStation-oriented franchise that people can look forward to. Got a big first gameplay trailer of Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yeah, that game's looking great.
Coming next year, no new date there, but we got to see it in action.
At least we saw the actual gameplay.
Right, looks really good.
Looks super good.
And then they closed with this heavily rumored Astrobot game coming September 6th.
I'm actually pretty excited for Astrobot.
Why do you have to say actually?
Actually.
I mean, I thought this saved this presentation, which otherwise was a little ho-hum.
Right.
I mean, this seems like absolutely the type of game that Sony has just decided, like, we don't need to make this anymore.
Right.
A game that's not about a sad old man, why would we do that?
A game that costs like billions of dollars,
yeah,
why
but
would we do that?
It's like, wow, it's got color, it's got different gameplay ideas, it's got some vibrancy and energy to it. Like,
it kind of pokes fun at like just Sony, like, it's using like as a boss, it's like it's an actual console and things like that.
Right.
So it has a little bit of humor and lightheartedness.
And it's definitely like the most Nintendo game that Sony makes these days. So it is like it is kind of like on Nintendo's block of like, hey, if you're interested in those types of games, here's something you might like.
Right.
So, in the end, like, this was not an earth-shattering, life-changing event. But it was okay if you had probably low expectations.
Yeah.
Something big that was not there, the again, heavily rumored PlayStation 5 Pro.
Right.
Probably something you might see at like a Gamescom.
Yeah. Closer to the holiday
Closer to when it's going
time.
to come out, where they can say, it's going to be out in a week or 2 weeks or something.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So very game focused. They did have some games launching in the summer. They're focused on games that looks like kind of summer to fall, which is very much in line with why you do a June announcement.
Yeah.
May, June announcement is when you want to announce games in this time frame.
So we worked at Nintendo for over a decade apiece. Nintendo always watches these events very closely, has
competitive research.
Teams and teams of people watching, doing reports, taking notes, doing analysis. What do you think is the discussion over at Nintendo right now based on this?
Yeah, if I were Nintendo, and I'm Nintendo that has another Direct coming in mere weeks.
Right.
In June as well, looking very closely at what the competition is doing. I think the report's going to say, nothing to worry about, stay the course, is one of those kinds of things where there's nothing really in this PlayStation showcase that sort of is a big red flag for Nintendo. I think with the exception of Astrobot being a more sort of Nintendo-esque game, I don't think that they're seeing any of these games announced here as like, oh, this is really encroaching on the Nintendo audience. We better keep our eye on this one. I'm not thinking they're feeling that way at all after seeing this.
Yeah, and Nintendo is always open to making some changes, not necessarily to the products themselves or their plans for those launches, but kind of how they talk about the products in relation to the competition. And yeah, again, like some of these games are so far from Nintendo's core product and games lineup, it's like we don't really need to address it. Like a game like Concord is not really something Nintendo is developing or thinking about right now. So it's kind of in a whole other stratosphere. But yeah, Astrobot definitely is one that I think will get the most discussion and the most analysis internally. I think the counters to that are, okay, well, you have one game that kind of fits this niche or this maybe this part of the market. We've got a whole generation worth of games made by the best developers in the world. That's hard to counter. This game's also on a console that costs $500 versus buy a Nintendo Switch. It's much more price conscious, and probably around the time that this game is going to be coming out, we might start to see some competitive pricing on the base Switch. Whether that's true. Maybe it's a price cut, but maybe it's this aggressive bundling that we see. So again, if you want to get into the Nintendo Switch ecosystem, the barrier is going to be very low. And again, we have a whole generation's worth of games that are at least as good as Astrobot, maybe better.
They might be saying at least as good, maybe better. Plus, they would probably argue that the Nintendo IP is stronger than the Astrobot IP.
Sure.
They're probably easy, like resting pretty easy on those points. In terms of talking about whether Astrobot is posed as a serious, competitive thing for them.
Yeah, and the holiday is such, the bread and butter of Nintendo's business. There's a huge percentage of their annual sales come in that holiday period. So I think they're looking very closely at, okay, in the holiday period, like what is the competition going to be? And again, I don't think they're going to come away from this terribly concerned. I do think, again, they want to see what's going to happen at Gamescom in Europe in a couple months, because that's where you often see something like a price drop or a new piece of hardware. That could definitely shake things up. But just on a games lineup basis here, I think they're feeling okay.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that might be in the back of Nintendo's minds is third-party support, because they are shoring up all of those relationships for the launch of Switch 2 next year. They're looking at the Marvels, they're looking at the big third-party companies to see what games might be able to bring over to Switch 2 later on.
I was just going to say.
Capcom, Monster Hunter.
Is Monster Hunter Wilds going to be on the Switch 2?
I don't know. That's what I think that the third party Nintendo team is probably rubbing the elbows,
so again,
doing the good work with all these licensed partners.
Yeah, if you have a game that is on all the platforms, it's like yes. So let's say Monster Hunter Wilds is also on the Switch 2 as a hypothetical. It's like, okay, there is some association with the PlayStation brand that is being made here. But we've had Monster Hunter games on the Switch. So
on Nintendo platforms,
so in a way, you are just kind of advertising this game that's going to be big on all platforms to a bigger audience. So we can't necessarily be super upset about that. And you better believe Nintendo will have their own marketing opportunities with that.
With any of these games.
That game or any other game that's multi-platform at some point. But again, this is all purely hypothetical. We don't know at this point.
Yeah, we don't know, but if and when, these are the kinds of things Nintendo is thinking about in terms of third-party support, especially as they are prepping for the launch of a new console. But overall, I think Nintendo is keeping very calm.
Take a deep breath. We've made it past this one. I mean, this is really the kickoff of this big June announcement season. Next week is Summer Game Fest. That weekend, you've got the Xbox event, and they just kind of keep going. So that team that is watching and reporting and analyzing on all of these is extremely busy.
Very busy.
But you do kind of like check them off of like, all right, we passed this
that
one.
bullet.
No major roadblocks there. No major changes to our plans. That team that's working on the Nintendo Direct is like deep in it right now. So again, that has not been announced. There's no date. We know it's happening in June. We don't know when.
But it is literally like the focus of all of the teams right now to make sure that is going to be a big moment for them as usual. And they're looking at all the things that are happening around them to make sure that happens.
They want to know, do I need to make some last second change to how we are describing this game in relation to some unnamed competitor in our video? So
exactly.
It's a busy time for the entire industry right now. Still busy for Nintendo. And exciting, yes.
So we're here.
Even though this was a little bit muted, it was still exciting to know that this is kicked off and we are now in this part of the year.
So we're going to be following along with all of the upcoming June announcement, and we'll be obviously talking to you guys about it. If you guys watched the showcase today, let us know in the comments what you're excited about. and if you have any predictions for any of the other announcements upcoming in June. All right, we're going to wrap it up now, and we'll see you guys later. Bye. Bye.